What is going on, everyone, and welcome into our top stocks for this week. A live stream where we diving into a bunch of stocks that we are watching for this upcoming week. Hopefully everyone had a great weekend. A nasty, I guess kind of somewhat of a pullback. I wouldn't say nasty. We've seen worse finish to the market last week. So as we go into this week, starting off here tomorrow, June 21st, right now we're looking at futures here Sunday night. So looking at futures, tech slightly up, but pretty much even. Honestly, everything's pretty much even, although small caps. So the Russell is looking like it wants to open, or at least it's indicating right up at just over 0.25%. VIX is down. So yeah, nothing crazy, at least from futures we can see right now. We'll check back in with that towards the end, and we'll see if we have any movement on that, but not too much. Obviously, last week there is a lot of stuff we got to talk about from last week, talking about the Fed, talking about how now there's the hint of raising rates in 2022, whereas that used to be 2023. That was the intention, although kind of, 2022, 2023, okay, I guess 2022 is sooner rather than later, right? But I don't think it's a huge deal. But we'll see how that plays out. That is potentially why the market did sell off quite a bit towards the end of the week. We have to talk about some stocks. Right now, we'll take a look at SPY. I want to look at some cryptos as well. Take a look at that. So SPY finished the week right here. Take a look at this. It didn't look good. If you look at this chart, not a great look. Just SPY, how it kind of is falling off a cliff here. The 50 SMA is this blue line that it's generally held the past couple of months. And so it tested that level again, and it's falling kind of below. So we'll see how it opens up come, Monday. And if we, bounce right back up to the upside, get back up towards like 420 or so, or if we continue the drop down, which at the end of the day, if you take a step back, look at the grand scheme, it's not that big a deal. I think it's, certainly still an opportunity for dip buys. But although you have a lot of big names now talking about how, the biggest crash of the mother of all crashes, I've been seeing some stuff, and it is what it is. At the end of the day, I don't think that's going to be happening right now. We're probably going to need something. You're going to need something bigger to be the catalyst, which again, right, kind of how we had the pandemic back in here to be that catalyst, right? We had the yield curve was inverting and whatnot back then. Everyone's like, oh, that means we're going to see a recession within the next 24 months or something like that, within the next 12 to 36 months or whatever the timeline was. And, we got the black swan of the pandemic. So you're probably going to need something like that to send it down big like that. Although, with a potentially higher inflation or with rising rates, yeah, things could slow down. And I would anticipate things slow down substantially going forward, which we kind of have honestly been seeing to a degree the past couple of months, ever since some of the pullbacks we saw towards the beginning of March and stuff. We had this big run back here at the end of April to early May. And then ever since really the end of April, we haven't made much progress. If you think about it, right? So if you go back to the end of April, like April 20th or so, right, we were up around that 415, 417 area on SPY. Where are we right now? We're at 414. So we're actually down since then, and we only hit up to 425. So really, percentage-wise, we've really, the actual moves that we're seeing are slowing down considerably, which I think is a good thing. So in terms of from that end of April move, right, to the upside, we moved about 2% up, and to the downside, we moved about 3.5% down in terms of the range we've been in. So we're in like a 5% range, since then. And I would anticipate, to be honest, that we stay relatively, stable to a degree, at least for right now. We'll see how this plays out, though. It should be an interesting week. So let's take a look at some stocks right now. I want to start off with some of the EV stocks. They have been doing quite well, or they've been bouncing back on up. So let's start with Tesla. Here's Tesla, looking pretty good, to be honest, closing up. As much as the market was a little bit shaky the past 2 days, right, Thursday, Friday, Tesla was looking pretty solid. It's still in my buy range here, but it's getting towards the upper end here. Up over 650 would be a breakout, and I would expect Tesla to make a move towards 750. That's my guess, at least on the chart. I would say if we make a move up over this 650, I think we see 700, 750 before we see 550 again at that point. Although 550 is our support for now, at least 550, 540 or so is our downside support on Tesla. Putting in higher lows, we can kind of see on the chart we have a higher low. We have a low right here back on the 19th of May. Then we got a low, which is this was down towards 545. Then the next low was 570, and that was beginning of June. And our low, I guess, from this past week was 595, roughly. So putting in higher lows, stair-stepping its way on up. So Tesla looks pretty strong, needs to get back up over the 640, 650 area. So that should be what we are looking at right there. I do want to point out, I want to look at some crypto stuff, so we can take a look at that too after some of the EVs. So I'll pull up my, I'll pull up some other ones. We got CCIV is one that I have never actually taken a position, which looking back, I wish I had done so when it was under 20 bucks, but it's come back down to the low 20s. I like it down here. I think it's got some support here down towards 21. So that is trend. We have an actual area that was prior support resistance in the past. And also the blue line here, this blue line, the 50 SMA is lining up very nice right there. So I think that's a good bounce zone for CCIV. At least for right now. FSR is another one that we also have been paying attention to quite a bit. FSR is kind of in a weird, not in a weird, it's at resistance right now because it had this area of resistance that we've seen in the past, some of these highs back in here, prior area of support resistance, which is up around the $18. So it needs to get up above this 18 and break out, probably up over 20 bucks for us to make a move up. So this is an interesting spot, potentially looking like a bull flag setup. So a very nice setup here in FSR, in my opinion. And it's if you're not in it, it's a fairly easy trade the way I see it in terms of risk reward, at least for right now. So the way I see it is here's where you're looking at. Okay, if FSR drops below this 1650, you step out, right, which is a dollar downside. FSR needs to break up over 20 bucks and you get a nice move up. So right now you're looking at to 1650, you're looking at a dollar downside for a couple dollar upside. And if you get a breakout over 20, this thing has had range up towards over 30. So that's a pretty nice range, pretty nice, play in my opinion right there if you're going to stick to a stop. If it does drop below that 1650, yeah, could it find support at like 15? Sure. But also could it come back down to 10? Yeah, if we see a bigger sell-off in the markets and whatnot, if things get kind of choppy for quite some time, I wouldn't be surprised. But I also am really curious to see how the next week or two, really 3 weeks play out to get a better gauge on tech versus value. So that's one of those things that I actually want to pull up FinViz really quick and take a peek at some of this, because this is actually really cool to look at. If we look at this, I guess, whatever you want to call this, their map. Let me zoom in a little bit so we can get a better view. But what we can look at is we can look at a lot of different things. And if we want to look at the past, let's say the past month, what we'll notice is that tech is up there doing quite well. If we look through some other stuff, we have consumer, we have restaurants, we have a bunch of stuff that kind of gets my attention. Banks had been taking some hits, right? Which we have, I believe, some catalysts for some banks coming up in the next couple of weeks. So it looks pretty nice. The past month, we've seen, a lot of tech, rebounding quite well. But if you go back the past, let's say 3 months, you still have your bigger names, your Googles, your Microsofts, your Apples. But if you look back, there's somewhat of a different story too. You're going to see a lot more value plays here that have done quite well. And so the question is going to be, do we see a really big surge in tech? And do we see kind of value pull back? And I think it's an interesting idea, because if we take a look at some of these stocks, and I want to kind of look at some of these recovery stocks right now. So for example, CCL, Carnival Cruise. This is a stock that obviously the past couple months has done quite well. If you look at the weekly chart, so zooming way out, yeah, this stock obviously has quite some room to go still to get back up towards its prior levels right prior to the pandemic. But even that, it has made quite a big move in the past couple of months. Ever since 2021, we really made a pretty good stride. So if we take a look, since 2021, on Carnival, let me zoom in a little bit. On Carnival, we can see that we've made a solid move of up over 50% roughly. To some of these highs, actually up over 65%. So yes, we have room, and if you want to get back towards pre-pandemic, you got to get back up towards $40, which I still think we're not there. We need to get, I would say you need a couple more months at least in order for that to happen. And I don't even think that we get there that soon. I think there's a lot more to have to happen. But we also have this trend line. Take a look at this downtrend. So we are approaching that downtrend up towards $30, $32 on Carnival Cruise. Is going to be some strong resistance right there. So I do want to point that out at least, and we'll be paying attention to that for sure. But it's been on a nice trend, higher lows, and it's been pulling back. So the question is going to be, do some of these value plays, do they pull back, and do we see the tech plays move back up? So let's look at ARK-K, one of the ARK ETFs. And so this got crushed. I mean, at the end of the day, if you broaden things out, it did phenomenal the past year, right? So it did phenomenal the past year. If you go from pandemic lows to where it was, yeah, the thing was up over 300%. Okay, great. But now it's pulled back off that crazy run. It pulled back 40%, which for a lot of people, that's a big pullback. Now, if you were smart, potentially, we'll see how this plays out, give it another year or two, right? That could have been the dip by, at least of the next, of the next decade, potentially, if tech does have a crazy run the next couple of years and beyond. But I think this is going to be interesting to watch because RK, even though the market was a little bit red Thursday, Friday, what are we seeing, right? These are a lot of tech plays. These were nice and green. I mean, not up 5-10%, no, but you're talking solid moves, 1%, 0.5%. They were green while the market was red. So I do want to be paying attention to the tech versus the kind of the value plays this coming week, and I think RK is a great kind of indicator if you want to call it that for that type of stuff. So that's at least where my focus is. I want to look at now Bitcoin. So take a look at Bitcoin. Let's take a look at BTC. Bitcoin's in a very interesting spot. In my eyes right here, what am I seeing? I'm seeing a couple different things. I'm seeing potential bear flag. So here's our flag pull to the downside. And then here is our flag pattern across. So we have support down here towards 30,000 and resistance up towards the low 40,000 area. So Bitcoin right here on a dip buy is looking really good if you're looking at it from a trading perspective, because you got some big time range to the upside if it does recover. It makes this kind of U-shaped recovery. Now, if you look for if it does fail and drop to the downside, yeah, I mean, if you're looking to play it down, to 30K, yeah, you're going to risk about $5,000, on Bitcoin to the downside, where you're looking at a reward of at least 5. I would be looking for, more towards 50K as a target if I was playing this play personally myself. If I was just going to play Bitcoin like I would play a stock, which I'm sure, there's a lot of people who just trade crypto, and it's it's very valid, right? But support down towards the low 30s. If it starts breaking down below that 30K, could it come down more? Yeah, I mean, that's where it kind of found its area of support back here when it made that initial burst through 20K, popped up to 40, pulled back to 30, then went up to 64. So this is going to be an interesting spot for sure. And also, this will be the potential head and shoulders, okay? So I'll just kind of briefly, for those who are, let me get rid of some of these lines, because I got a lot of lines in here that we've been watching this guy, as it progressed, as things kind of panned out. But what we roughly see right here is here's a shoulder, here's a potential shoulder right here, or you can even call these shoulders up here too. You can look at it a bunch of different ways, but you kind of have our higher peak right in the middle. We have a shoulder here, so the shoulders are not as high as the peak. And what you see is that usually a head and shoulders is a reversal back to the downside. We had a pretty big run up, and that head and shoulders indicates the top for now, and then a move back to the downside. So if we do fall below 30K, that would indicate the head and shoulders, right, was valid and the head and shoulders panned out. So we'll see. But, of course, these are just patterns that, we've seen many times in the past from a lot of stocks and a lot of different securities. Do they have to happen? Do they have to play out perfectly? No, and a lot of times they don't. But they're definitely useful to get a good gauge as to what we have going on, what may actually happen with Bitcoin going forward. So this is what we're watching, at least on that front. I want to point out, I do want to look at Dogecoin really quick. I'm actually curious. Just for myself, I don't even know what it's doing. So yeah, Dogecoin, again, similar, in a sense. Here's the problem with Dogecoin, right? It's been pulling back, kind of slowing down, but it's been pulling back. If Bitcoin falls back below 30K, I would imagine Dogecoin probably goes sub 20 cents. I wouldn't be surprised if Dogecoin goes sub 10 cents very, very quick if Bitcoin really dumps, which at the same time, I really don't think Bitcoin, looking at it from more of a value standpoint here, I think that there's the values there. I believe that there is certainly value in cryptocurrency longer term. I think there's a lot of value there. It's got its quirks, right? But I think that this potentially is a bigger scale of manipulation, and also a lot of panic because of potential regulations and whatnot. So we'll see how that pans out. But outside of that, I want to dive into some specific stocks. Now, there is one stock that I want to point out really quick, will be GLBS. This is a shipping play. They had earnings on Friday, so we have some interesting action in the aftermarket hours. Take a look at this. It bounced off its bottoms, it bounced off its relative lows down here, and it made a nice move up over 5, and it actually touched up to just about $6 in the after hours. Take a look at the 5-minute chart on GLBS. Yeah, it sold off into the end of the after hours, but it pushed up off that earnings. So I'm going to be watching a lot of those shipping companies. So what's one of the ones that I'd be keeping a good eye on will be CTRM. CTRM is one of those stocks that got a lot of attention. Look at this crazy run on CTRM. This is probably one of those stocks that I will have on a high watch this week, just because it was a stock that was kind of a cult stock. It got a lot of attention. It got a lot. You could even call it a meme stock, right? To a degree, it kind of got that type of level of attention on it. I saw so many videos, so many people were talking about it like it was the next best thing, and I'm like, I've watched CTRM for the past 2 years, and I'm like, this stock is just like a dilution machine, and it was like, POS. But man, it did great, and the downside's been great. But now if you were shorting it, but now look at what we are sitting at, right? We're coming down on new lows, but we're getting back down towards where it was prior to the big run that we saw the beginning of the year. And if we're seeing a lot of these shipping companies really reporting decent earnings, nice earnings, right? Numbers are up and like GLBS setting the stage, these are going to be valid plays. So CTRM is definitely one on my list, as well as SHIP. SHIP is one that I started to see some talk about this week, so it's going to be one to watch. We have some support down here. We have an 85. We have some solid support down towards $1. So SHIP sitting at 125. Actually, in the after hours, it pushed up a little bit. I think it's got some range to the upside. I think it's shown us it can make that type of move up towards that 245, which it has that type of range. Look back to the left. Yeah, there's plenty of range to the left on this chart. So I think there's some solid support down towards $1 on SHIP. And then one more shipper I'll point out. There's more where that came from for sure, but I'll point out Tops. These are some of the bigger names. Tops is also setting up really nice. I mean, Tops, we have some solid support down towards this 135, 140. It's sitting here at like around 170 or so. We have some indicator support here. The 200 and the 50 are both sitting here at that 165 or so, 163. We got some solid support there. Look back to the left on Tops. You got range to 250. You even got range up towards $3, even closer to $4 in recent months. So, that's definitely the type of setups that we'd like to watch. Look for these stocks that are bottoming out in a sector that's starting to heat up. These shipping plays are heating up, right? And if we catch one, right, if you're noticing GLBS starts popping up off good earnings, if you want to dive a little bit deeper in some of these companies, there's a good chance that a lot of these stocks in the same sector are probably going to report decent earnings too. And if we get that, right, there's opportunity there. So I do want to make sure that these people have that on their radar, because that's at least, I don't have any of these stocks currently. I'm not holding any right now, but they're definitely stocks I'm watching either for day trade opportunities or for even a swing trade opportunity if we see some dips in the market this week. So that's what I'm ready. Let's see. I'm going to catch up in some of the comments. Let's see. AKBA, I think that's what you mean, AKBA. Also, please don't put the company name, put the ticker symbol, because I don't know the company name, so I just know the ticker symbols. AKBA, I think I talked about in a recent video too, on a biotech play, really good risk reward, tons of range. I like it down here. We get some dips. That's a better opportunity on dips, but I like this one a lot in terms of risk reward. Let's see. IDEX is one that's the problem that I have with some of these stocks, the stock that did a nice run back in February, it's setting back up at double bottom here at 225. I think it's got some solid support down towards like 285 here. So IDEX is not a terrible setup, relatively speaking, although I don't know enough about it. I personally have stayed away because I've just seen too much attention on it. I've just seen too much kind of like hype. It has that cult stock type of feel, and I'm not a huge fan. Same thing with Wish. Nothing against Wish. I actually think I might just grab some in a longer term portfolio and stock it away. It's setting up really nice. The volume is beautiful on Wish. It could definitely make a pretty big run in pre-market and make a big move. The only problem that I have is that there is literally everybody and their mother is on Wish, like right now, in the trading community. Now, okay, it's not to the degree of AMC, but from what the feel that I have, it's like everybody's on it. So I personally am not a huge fan of that type of stuff when it comes to trading, because generally speaking, right, that tends to hold the stocks back from my experience. So I don't know. Wish, I like it. I really do. But if we get some further dips and if I see people complaining, that's probably the opportunity to buy it. On top of Wish, I want to talk about Clove. Clove is one that has been pulling back. Clove, I would expect it to find some support at some point down towards this $10, I would think. It has a potential area down here towards 12. I think Clove has some more range to come down. It may have a pop or two, but I think Clove will probably stabilize down towards 10, maybe even just below $10. I wouldn't be surprised, but I think Clove down towards 10 would be a better spot if it can slow down and calm down on this pullback. I talked about how I shorted it the other day because it just looked kind of weak, and then we ended up seeing a pretty decent, sell-off. I shorted it back in here, looking for it to fall down below 1350, and it did. And then that day it fell to 1450. I missed out on taking the full move down, but I got a good chunk of that move from up towards like 1375 or 1380 average down towards 13, or even actually I think I had some under 13, which was nice. But Clove, I think I like it long term. I like it long, but in terms of the shorting setup, that's what I'm also looking at too. People are talking about shorting stocks, right? I've been doing it. I enjoy doing it because it's a lot more sometimes predictable on the backside of moves. Now, you don't want to be just doing it into a parabolic move because it's somewhat risky there. But if you can catch the backside of the move, you don't have to be a short that's going to swing something short. But there's opportunity a lot of times on sometimes like Clove. If you notice, Clove it finally, the buying volume exhausted and it fell off, right? For example, let's say Wish, right? Now, I'm not saying Wish is a short right here. Absolutely not. I'm saying, let's say if you look at Wish, and let's say Wish goes up and it makes a crazy move and it goes to like $40 and it makes some sort of short squeeze type move. Well, there'll be a decent backside. It'll probably pull back, quite a few dollars, right? At least. And you could probably capitalize on a good chunk of that backside, but you just want to be watching. And when it hits your criteria, enter the trade with a nice stop loss in place, and generally there's a lot of opportunity on the backside of these moves, which is what I'm watching for. And I really was we didn't have too much in the small cap land last week because we got some big movers at the beginning of the week, but then towards the end of the week, we really didn't have too many parabolic movers. So it was kind of dry. So I'm curious to see how this week starts out. TRCH is definitely one that's been solid. TRCH, this chart setup is just, it's beautiful how it played out. So it had a prior high back here up towards this 485. Okay. So eventually it popped through. It popped up to 676. Okay. Next day it dips back down. Where did it dip down to? 485. Literally to the, pretty much to the cent. Why is that important? Well, prior area of resistance becomes the new support when you're above. And so the prior resistance of that 485 became beautiful support as Wish pulled back and it fell down to that area. So that's your support right there. That 485 is support. We're going to have resistance up here towards that 676. But I think in the after hours, did we break above? We got close. We hit that 675. So we got close. But TRCH, I would imagine, probably breaks through in the pre-market hours tomorrow morning, and it goes maybe $7 or more, I would think, for sure. But that's a good setup there. Personally, I'm not a fan of going long this stock as it's making a parabolic move. So I don't want to be going long here, but this also is a stock that sets up for really nice short opportunities because you have people taking profits. It's not necessarily a short for I'm going to short this stock back to $1. No. But if we get a fall, if this thing falls off or it gets rejected up here towards that 675 area again, or that $7 and it falls off, look at the type of range you're talking about. Look at the intraday range on some of these days. We have intraday range of 12%, right? We have intraday range even on just Friday alone, intraday range of 23%. If you can grab 2, 3, 4, 5% of that move on the long or a short, right, there's opportunity. So on the dips down, I'd be liking to go potentially long if it came down towards that 485. However, if we came down there, I wouldn't be surprised if we fall through. So be careful with the tight stop in place, the way I would play it. And there's a gap, so there's probably support here down towards 430, and then there's some range if it comes down to fill this gap down towards that 372. So if it does start falling down, this gap probably gets filled to the downside, and then that's where you would look to potentially go back long on TRCH if it came down towards that level. Just pointing it out, as just looking technically speaking. So that's what I'm looking at. Back from vacation. Awesome. Hope you had a nice vacation. What's up with Neo? Let's pull up Neo. We can pull up Neo as an EV play. Neo is setting up nicely, I think, a lot really as well. Neo dipping down here to the low 30s, and it pushed back up. It's getting up towards that area of resistance. So we got to see it holding up. We want to see Neo holding up over 45. If it holds up over 45, it's probably going to 55. 50 first. Let's get 50 first. Then I would say 55 on Neo. That would be my target to the upside, as it's an area of prior resistance, prior support. It's going to be a strong area right there towards 55. And then over that, we can see that happened pretty quick. But again, look at Neo's bounce, right? Pretty strong bounce. Would not be surprised for a pullback or for a nice consolidation. I would really, for Neo, I would love to see it consolidate right here for a week or two, just in this range from 44 to 47. Maybe not a week or two, but for at least a couple days, and before it makes a move back to the upside. So that's what I'm looking at least on Neo right now. Let's see. Scrolling on down. If I miss stuff, I am sorry. CLSK. Let's take a look at CLSK. Clean Spark. How has CLSK been setting up? Actually, not bad. It's actually in a good spot. Would like to see it holding over $18. That's the 50 SMA, roughly just over 18. But it's it's putting in higher lows. It's kind of nice. It's broken out of this channel. So it's broken out of this downtrending channel. So I like the setup we have on it. We just got to see some more volume. This volume, it started to come in a little bit and then it kind of faded off. Let's see if we get more volume. We're looking at right now 1.5, around 1 million to 1.2 million shares. Let's get towards 2 million shares. Closer to 2 million shares traded per day on CLSK without news would be nice to see for the chart setup. Obviously with good news or something like that can send it even higher. But let's see how that plays out. I kind of like that. CLNE. The only thing with this one is that it's gotten a lot of attention. It had a nice bounce, and it found support here down towards $10. So you have support down towards 10, resistance, a little bit of resistance up here towards this $12.50, and then we have a little bit more up here towards $14.50 to $15 on CLE. So it's still got some range for sure to the upside. And I think this is one that I've seen a lot more chatter on Reddit about as well, if I'm not mistaken. Not that that really necessarily means everything, but a little bit more chatter there, sending in volume. Look at the volume from Friday, 100 million shares. It's pretty substantial. So there's that. One to watch is NTEC. I've heard some things about NTEC. Let's pull this bad boy up here. Oh, wow, this is a nice chart. I mean, this would have been really nice under $4. Merger agreement vote tomorrow at 10 a.m. Microflow. Yes, NTEC is a stock that I have definitely played in the past a few times, I would think at least. And look at the spikes. It's offered up some nice range. It got some attention here. We got to get this thing over $5. Let's see if it gets over $5. Over 5, we're going to have a slight resistance. There'll be some resistance here at like 530-ish, 535. Over 535, yeah, this could get this. This has that type of range for a nice move up. But this is also one of those that has those spikes, offers some good downside too. So this is definitely one to have on the list. That's what I'm looking forward to for at least on the day trader side of things. I'm really looking forward to getting more, just seeing more action. Like Thursday, Friday, we didn't see much action. I mean, Monday we had some good action. I think Tuesday, even Wednesday, we had some good action in small caps. We just didn't see very much on Thursday, Friday after the Fed talk. So we'll see how the market wants to shake out this coming week. But let's take a peek really quick. Let's pull up futures. So yeah, I mean, pretty much even. I wouldn't really say that there's much going on here in terms of futures. Pretty even. Small caps do look like they want to make a nice move. But I do want to point out in terms of small caps too, take a look at this. If I take a look at the IWM, the Russell 2000. So here's small caps. We got some really good support. If this comes down towards that 215 area, we got some really good support. So if we do see some more short-term downside on the Russell in small cap land, we got some good support there. But if we get we got to break out up over this 235 for a bigger move up on small cap. But I think we're gonna see stronger small caps this summer. So we'll see how this pans out. But if we do note, look at the volume. Look at this volume the past 2 days. Very strong volume days, relatively speaking, in the Russell. So that is somewhat concerning. So we'll see how this plays out coming into Monday. In the after hours, it didn't close very good. It sold off a little bit more from the close, a little bit. So it's up right now so far in the futures, but it's definitely a stock that, or not a stock, it's definitely something to watch. What I do personally on like a watch list, just to get a sense for what's going on, is I'll keep SPY. So like I'll keep how SPY is doing, so the SP 500, and then I'll keep IWM. So I'll get a good sense for I'll watch those two, and I'll see, okay, how is IWM, how are small caps generally doing relative to SPY? And we saw some days where it was doing good on even small red days in the market, but when you have substantial pullbacks in, let's say, SPY, you're going to get bigger pullbacks generally across small caps. For the most part, you see a little bit of a bigger move there because you're looking at higher growth plays, more speculative plays for the most part. And when you see weakness in the market, these are the first ones to get hit. So it is what it is. And really when it comes down to it, people, if you're getting stressed out or you're freaking out about your positions being down, so much, my stock's down 5% and the market was down 1%. We're not even, right? It really, the more that I think about this, at least lately, we kind of got slightly disconnected from the market driving certain stocks or driving a lot of stocks in the small cap space. And we see that when things get quiet. So if we go back, look at SPY, when things got kind of quiet for a little bit of time, if you just look at the past couple of weeks, look at the movement on some of these days. I would say from the end of May through early June, there was very small movement up and down. There was really not. It was a nice trend to the upside, but very small movement. So yeah, we were kind of inching our way up, but we weren't really making a substantial pullback or push up. So when that happens, you kind of see I start to notice that you see a lot of stocks somewhat disconnect, and you'll see more attention sometimes on the small caps, on some of those speculative plays. You'll get more of those news runners where these stocks go 100%, 200% on a given day. And all that really, it's nice to see because it provides more opportunity for swings. It's nice. And for also just for going long, going short, dip buy opportunities, there's more volume, there's more liquidity. If you want to get in on a short position, right, if something makes a crazy run and it's unwarranted, right? And eventually it starts, the buyers start to exhaust and the sellers take over, the shorts take over. There's a good chunk of that move back down that you can take advantage of. And honestly, for a lot of people, I mean, it's not, people don't want to go the short side, but if you start to understand that side, a lot of times it's a lot less stressful as long as you're putting a hard stop in place. It's a lot less stressful because there's not like, okay, I'm buying, I'm not catching it late in a sense. Whereas like if you're not in down towards the lows, right, you run the risk of something popping up on news and then just dropping back. I've been in a bunch where I'm in a stock, it gets good news, you would think it would make a run, and it ends up going up 20% and then immediately going back down and goes red on the day. And that could happen, you know. Sometimes with the shorts, right, on stocks that have some fluffy news, it's a lot in a sense less stressful as long as you're willing to stop yourself out. If you're not going to stop yourself out and you're like, hey, this stock is going back down to $2 if it goes to like $6, you know, and the thing goes to $8, well, it could certainly go to 10, 20, right? We've seen crazy runs on low floats. It could go to 10, 20 before it comes back down, but you want to make sure you're stopping yourself out if you're going to take something like that. Okay, let's see. I'm going to scroll back through and check on some other comments. TBLT, you know, I have to say is one of those just stubborn little guys. So what we have, what was it? Was it Prime? I didn't even realize. I don't have to buy anything from Amazon, but the little Prime Day run up we had from TBLT, and then it pulled back a little bit. So TBLT, I like it a lot. I really do on TBLT, but it's a slower play, so you got to have patience, and you want to be buying this thing low. You don't want to be buying this thing on a spike. So when I saw it popping on up, I was like, I don't want to touch this thing over 90 cents. So now back under 80 cents, I think it's not a bad idea. I think I might want to, maybe it's on my list. It was on my list last week. I'll put it on my list again this week. So I make sure I have it logged in there. I like it. If it takes a bigger dip down towards 75 or even lower, I like it. Also, that reminds me, because it's in the same price range as our good friend CEI. So here's crude oil. Crude's popping on up a little bit here, a little bit right now, relatively speaking. It's been strong. Look at the past couple of days and past couple of weeks. It's been very strong. It had a great mid last week. If we zoom out, very nice trend on crude. I'm playing CEI for a PR, for a press release, for some news, but look at this play. This is a perfect example of scaling in, scaling out. I know it stinks if you had, let's say you didn't sell any of it, if you were in it. But here's a great example. The thing went to almost 85 cents. Okay, cool, right? And then it pulled back because the market got a little bloody, and so small caps took a hit. And guess what? CEI, being a low flow, being a stock, it just took a hit. And so I still have it, but what I did was I sold half of my position on the way up. And then I was like, I ideally want to see $1 or more here on this stock, but to send it to $1, it's going to probably need a press release, or it's going to need some crazy oil news or some massive oil run. And we didn't get that, right? We got a little bit of an oil run. Some oil plays were moving up on Wednesday, but they didn't go crazy. So we were watching that on the live and we took some profits there, but I started to add back under 70 cents. I started to buy back. And so I'm building out, I'm just re-adding to my position. If CEI comes back down under 60 cents, I'll buy some more. That's my plan for CEI as of right now. I think luckily, I had a bid at 63 cents, and it actually hit within the last couple minutes of the market being open, the last few minutes of after hours. My bid at 63 cents hit. So I got filled for some more shares. I set that bid up, I believe, when I saw this dip right here. I said, okay, if it comes down, this is a nice dip. If it comes down to 63 cents, I'll buy some more. And it eventually did in the after hours. So nice. Hopefully we wake up to that thing, with crude being up, popping back up to over 65. And then, those dip ads were nice. But we'll see how that plays out. I still like the oil plays. I still do. Amazon plays Vino, V-I-N-O. This is an interesting one too. It got a lot of attention. It's been one of those stocks that's gotten some action the past couple of weeks. Past couple of days actually, and it's holding up nicely at 550 to be support. So let me draw that line there because this is actually one that I'll be watching this week for sure. Why is that an interesting area? Look at on the chart. Prior resistance is up here towards that 550 a couple of times. Broke through, went crazy almost to $10, and then it's come back down a couple of days, but it's holding that 550 nicely. So that's an interesting area to watch. If it holds that 550, I will be watching for sure. MDWD. We have, let's take a look at this guy. MDWD, bio with PDUFA on the 29th of June, already approved in Europe, can get over resistance. So if it gets through, yeah, this is, wow, look at the move it had the past couple of weeks, right? Big move up, and now it's pushing up even more. It looks like a move potentially up towards $5 will be resistance first. Over 5, we got resistance. We got a little bit to grind through up here. There's some grinding it's going to have to get through. A lot of kind of chop right up in here, but over 5, over 6, this thing has a range, looks like. Look back to the left even further. Over $6, yeah, this could make some solid strides, I would think. I like that. It's a nice play. That could be a good idea to have on your radar with that PDUFA coming out very, very soon. A lot of those stocks have been kind of going crazy relatively, or at least lately. HEPA, I'm out of. I was in it for a swing. I'm actually out for right now because it popped up. It's setting up actually decently as long as it holds up around $2. I sold it personally just to clean up because I was in it from like 170 something. So I was like, okay, I took a nice chunk of this move. I'm going to take my profits here and just to consolidate my trades, my positions. I was noticing that I was in spread a little too thin. And so I'd rather consolidate into more of the couple that I know. And I was already up, I believe. Let's take a look on HEPA. What was I up? I was up like, from my average, I think I was already up like 20+%. So I was like, you know what? I'm taking gains here, and then we'll reassess. If it comes back down towards $2, I'll reassess. But yeah, resistance on HEPA up towards that looks like 250. And then I would say up towards 275 would be targets I would have on HEPA eventually. Probably need some news to send it though. Let's see. I'm scrolling on through. Let's see. Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about AMC. Let's pull up AMC. Let's pull this bad boy up. This chart setup is interesting. So it's putting in higher lows very nicely as it continues to grind up, but it's got resistance up here in the 60s. So it's going to be interesting to see how AMC plays out. If it gets back up over the mid 60s, over 65, then yeah, this thing probably makes a nice push to 70, potentially a new high. The thing with AMC that I'm really, I don't want to say I'm surprised about with, but to a degree I am surprised that it has held up quite this well. So the question, well, the thing we need to see with AMC is you got to see the volume. The volume has to continue. If the volume starts fading out, which, okay, relatively speaking, yeah, the volume has faded out since the move at the end of May, but the move at the end of May was a little more substantial. The problem with AMC here is that you have a stock that has a pretty, like the only issue that I think is, though the biggest issue with it is the float. The float is 450 million or like almost 500 million shares. And the higher the price goes, the tougher that really becomes, I think, you know, for this to really make it through, which is why it makes it so much more impressive and it's so strong to see what it's been doing. But it's the longer it takes, the more impatient some people will get. Now, I know there's a massive core of people who are not selling. They literally are not selling. And that's crazy to see how that's been working. But if you get some weakness on this, the float is massive. And so it's not going to be easy to continue to make this move up because you need to see that volume continue to come in. You need to see buyers continue to come in. And I don't know, at some point, I think there's somewhat of a buyer exhaust. Now, I don't know how that plays out exactly in the next couple of weeks, but there's at some point a buyer exhaust where we're seeing the volume pull back a little bit. And so we'll have to be, this is something that we'll be watching. But I think, okay, over 65, up towards 70, and then 72 is the high. So we'll see how that plays out. Super volatile play, though, as of right now. Lows, I mean, you can't even play this one on a support resistance basis, to be honest with you. It's going to do what it wants to do. So AMC is a stock that, to be honest, if you're a day trader, I mean, you're probably just loving it. Like, you're just having so much fun on this thing because you can play it up, down, short, long, I mean, everything. I don't think you can short it on a lot of brokers. They just restricted that, so you can't even short on many brokers. More advanced brokers you can. But even going long on some pretty hard dips, I mean, you have some good opportunities to even take this thing long on some solid dips. You know, for example, that dip into the close on Friday, fell to 56, popped back up to like 60 cents. I mean, into $60. You know, just like that dip alone. Okay, let's say you don't get the bottom. Let's say you grab it a little bit higher. It's like a 3 to 5% move. So there's moves like that all over the place. And so a lot of people have been taking advantage of that. A lot of day traders, at least I know, have been taking advantage of that. Let's see. ATNF. I have not seen. Let's see. ATNF. I haven't taken a look at this one in a while. Let's take a look at it. Where is this bad boy sitting up? It's at $10. Wow, it's at an interesting spot. This is a stock that I was swinging. I was swinging this one back a while ago, and this is an example of having the conviction, which to be honest, at the time, I did and I didn't. I had some conviction behind the trade, but I was more so playing it for just a nice move. And I got my big move on it, and I think I sold it somewhere in here around $5 or something like that, $6. And I ended up pulling back, and you could have got back in here as it dipped back down in March. And it's made a beautiful move back up to 10 plus, which is just awesome. It's putting in higher lows. It's trending on up. I like it. I liked the due diligence that I did back when I did it a couple months ago. I like the play. I just risk reward wise right now, I don't know, chart wise, I'm not a huge fan. So I don't personally, like if I see a chart like this, it kind of filled its little U shape, I guess, recovery. And now I'm like, okay, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a pretty big pullback, or we get a pullback, and at that point maybe I can take a look at it again. Personally, unless I really know, okay, I see a lot more value fundamentally here. Here's why. Here are all the catalysts, which I personally don't know. So if you have that type of stuff, please leave them in the chat, because that's good stuff to know. Charge point, I definitely want to put that one up. I just saw they just installed a bunch right by me, right down like on the streets here. They installed a bunch. It's getting back up to resistance, so we're going to have resistance on this bad boy up here towards that 35. So we're getting up there, but I like it with the EVs pushing up. Very strong volume day on Friday. It's looking good. It's going to have resistance up here towards that 35, so I would not be surprised if we get a pullback up around this level. But if it can grind through, or it consolidates and pushes back up through, we're going to have to get through this area from 35 to about 45. And over that, we got some range to the upside. I think this makes a pretty big move at some point in the near future. So those who were buying the dip, look at how beautiful the support was down here towards like $19-20. Very beautiful setup. I mean, it just held that level beautifully. So that's a solid chart. AYRO, I like AYRO. A little bit of a longer, I guess, horizon play in my eyes. If it pulls back, it's actually a lot of stocks. So, okay, if you guys remember a few weeks back, we talked about a lot of things, right? And one of the things we talked about was one of the patterns that was working was the 200 SMA bounce, okay? A lot of stocks, what they were doing, they were on this orange line. They were bouncing off. They were selling off after pretty big runs back in, the beginning of the year. And they were coming back down, and they were bouncing off this orange line, the 200 period moving average, or the 200 period simple moving average on the 1 year, 1 day chart. And so a lot of stocks were bouncing off that level. And now what we're seeing is a lot of stocks have done this. They've crossed the 50 SMA, the blue line here on the daily chart, okay? 50 period moving average. They've crossed that, and now they're holding that to be support. And now I love this play. This is actually like a textbook, swing trade for a lot of small caps. You break above, you pull back to the 50 SMA, and then you bounce, right? So it makes it a very easy trade, okay? So for example, AYRO, I'm looking at this saying, okay, if it falls below $5, maybe I'm out, right? I'll take this for a trade. Under $5, I step out. And if it falls under 5, right, maybe it comes back down to $4.50 or $4 and I can buy it lower. But $5 is that 50 SMA. Good support right now. We're holding above it. And if we get a good bounce, many times it acts as kind of like a slingshot. And so for me, I'd be looking at AYRO and I'm like, okay, where would I be targeting for this one for a nice little bounce? Here's what I'm targeting. I'm targeting up towards this $7, which would be about 45% from the current levels. I like that risk reward. If I'm going to risk myself about 25, 30 cents right now to the downside, and I'm going to go for like a $2 plus upside, that is nice. So that's a setup that we'd like. A lot of stocks are in that same setup. So this week is going to be interesting to see how they hold up. Do we see just a dump and a sell-off below, and everything kind of comes back down? Or do we see things holding up and bouncing from those levels? And if we do, that would be a great sign, going forward into the, at least into July potentially, right, for a lot of small caps. So I am cautiously I really want to be very optimistic, and I really was, I would say, at the beginning of last week, and then the second half of the week kind of got me a little bit shaky on that stuff, because I've just seen how the summer goes for a lot of small caps and a lot of the high growth plays. I just see how it goes, and it calms down quite a bit, and you can generally get a lot of those same stocks for a pretty bigger, for a nice discount compared to where they are right now. after, let's say, September, right? Now, maybe that doesn't happen this year because it's happened the past couple of years. Maybe it doesn't happen this year. And so that shakes things up because we saw a pretty big dip in March. So that's the question that we've been having, right? CTRM as a bottom play. Yes, I actually talked about CTRM back towards the beginning. So I like CTRM, a lot of shipping plays. I like that. Let's see. If you want to show them how hard it is to move a higher, look at Nokia. Yeah, exactly. Nokia, look at this stock. Right now, this thing has kind of grinded its way on up, but Nokia, let me pull it up on the right-hand side. I know you guys can't see it, but let me pull it up. Nokia the float is 5.37 billion. So this thing is not making those 20% moves in a day, not even, some stocks will do more. It had that really weird day. I still don't understand how that even happened. I guess though, when you get, this is a billion, and it had a billion shares traded, so I guess I get it. But I mean, this thing is a slow mover for sure. Run, yes, I like Run. Sunrun is one of the stocks I think I had in the long term. I think I pulled out of it because I put my money into something else. But yeah, I like this one a lot, and it did really well to finish off last week. So Sunrun, I like a lot. Nice breaking this downtrend. Yeah, it had a crazy run. It had get it right, run, and it pulled back like 50 more than that. It pulled back from $100 down to sub 40. It pulled back 60+%. But now we're sitting up for a nice reversal. This is not going anywhere. I like it, and we got some good news. You tie in some good news there. You got number one, you have a fundamental play longer term. I don't think it's going anywhere. Number two, you got a decent chart set up. We're breaking out of this downtrend, and then you sprinkle on a little bit of good news. Boom. There you go. Okay, let me see. How can I get the best stocks for day trading every day? The best from what I like to do personally is that's exactly it. I will watch in pre-market. So I just watch stuff in pre-market. So it's the easiest way to just get a good feel. And if you just sit there and you don't have to trade anything for the first week or 2 weeks or a month or even a year. I mean, I've done it, to be honest, for like over a year, where I literally every single pre-market, right? Pretty much. Maybe sometimes I'm away and I'm not paying attention, right? But for the most part, every single pre-market I'm here and I'm watching. And so all I do is I have this layout right here. I look on the right-hand side. I change this guy here to top gainers in the pre-market. I watch the pre-market gainers. And I try to find connections. If I'm noticing, okay, a lot of stocks in the, let's say a lot of stocks in the EV sector, or a lot of stocks, let's say in a specific sector, biotechs, are catching my eye. Most of the time, they're dropping press releases that are sending them higher. But if I'm noticing that that's hot, then that really helps me identify a sector. I can then go into like Finviz. I can go into one of those sites and scan for stocks in that sector that are bottomed out, that are oversold, right? That have a low float, that are under $10. I can start honing in my scans, and I have some videos on the how to find stocks to buy or something like that playlist on the channel, going over this exact process. But then I move my way into that. And I also lately I've been playing both sides. So if I can't catch something early, like the way that I like to play both sides is if I can get a good dip buy intraday, or if I see a stock that has like absolutely amazing news, like positive phase 3 results is usually really good news. And if I can catch that thing under 20%, if it's only up 20% or less, if I can catch it early, I'll grab it. But for the most part, I've been watching is, okay, I like to play my swings. So I'll get in super low. I'll be swing trading something. I'll try to buy something at the bottom, or as close to the bottom as I can get it. And then if it gets news, great, I scale out on the news. Or if it eventually pops back up, I scale out into that. And then I let all these plays move. I let a lot of the news runners move and do their thing. And then I try to catch the backside. So like I was saying towards the beginning, right? I have gotten caught in a couple of shorts where I've gotten screwed, because I was in, I started shorting it. I didn't put a stop in place. But if I can catch something as we're kind of seeing the buying volume exhausting and it starts to come back down, if you look at a lot of these stocks, I mean, a lot of these penny stocks, they do the same thing. They do the same thing. I mean, give it a day or two. They may have usually it's a 1 day pop and then a pullback. If it's a couple day run, okay, great. But even if it is, there's still probably a pretty substantial move to the downside, and you can dive into the news. You kind of get a sense, okay, this stock had positive phase 1 data, right? This stock had positive phase 3 data. Phase 3 is better than phase 1. They were both positive. Okay, why is the phase 1 stock up so much more than the phase 3? If I can find a disconnect there, I look into it a little bit more. If I find a disconnect, many times there's a bigger short opportunity on that phase 1. And so if I'm looking for a short, well, then I'm looking for that one and not the phase 3, because the phase 3 might have more to go. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm watching when it comes to news. I want more opportunity on that side of things. I think I've been doing quite well with some of those. And so sometimes when things are boring, it just gives me more stuff to do and more ideas to trade. But I think that's another thing too, is that you don't have to trade every day. Really, you don't. So if you feel like you can't figure something out, you can't get a good feel for what you like or what setups are good, then just step back. There's no need to do it, because you'll find yourself trying to trade here. And that's exactly the thing. I noticed that the bigger days that I've had day trading, it's on a couple stocks, and that's it. Sometimes I'll sit there and I'll try to take something in the after hours. Like, why did I do that? It was stupid. Maybe I make a few bucks, but it's like, okay, I'd rather just find my higher convictions trades, whether it's a swing or it's a day trade, and go heavier size and play the stocks, the setups that I like the most. And it really comes down to a numbers game. And as you identify through Trading Journal, which I have a video on too, what stuff's working really good for you, and you hammer that and you double down on that, you can size in, you're putting yourself in a really good risk reward spot generally, right? So it's been good. All right, let's see. Gray is an interesting one. Let's pull it up. Gray is a very interesting play here. Let's take a peek at this bad boy. So it's pushed up, and it came back down here to the 50 SMA, which was sitting at like that 450. So it's really holding up quite nice. Let's look at the 1 hour chart. If we zoom out a little bit, Gray is kind of holding up. I don't know why the charts are a little bit weird tonight. It's holding up good at this 470 area, $5. It's setting up nice. I think your risk reward is actually not terrible here. And even still, it's still a pretty oversold play. Look at this. It got lots of range. This thing somehow gets up to $10. It's got range up to even fill this gap to 14. So I like Gray, volumes are coming in. I've been seeing some stuff. I haven't looked into it myself, but I've been seeing a good amount of people talking about it. So there might be something there. I'm hoping small caps move this week. I don't know. That's the way that last week finished off was not great. So for small caps, so I'm interested to see how this week plays out. I think it'll be a good week to give us a sense as to a better feel into the summer, because we get a good feel on this. If things kind of bounce this week, the market was a little bit red. I'm not even saying I don't really necessarily care if SPY bounces. For small caps, I'm saying, okay, well, if SPY doesn't plummet, even if SPY goes down like, 0.25% every day this week, every day, then small caps may hold up quite well. And so we'll see if we get that shift. And it looks like, we're just looking at this right now. Now, it's a very small sample size and we don't really know. But look at this. Small caps are up in the on futures, and tech is barely up, but tech is up. So those are the two that are green. Small caps, right, higher growth plays, more speculative, and then tech, right, higher growth plays, generally speaking. And then the Dow and the S&P are both down. So that's the correlation. Now, the S&P, I would say less, but the Dow, how does the Dow do versus the NASDAQ? And how does the Russell do, right, versus everything else too? So I'm curious. I have an inkling that we're going to see a better tech market and a better small cap market this summer, just based on how things are playing out to kind of flip the switch compared to the past couple of years. But we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. It is going to be interesting for sure. AIRI, how is this shaping on up? I was in it for a swing. I just trimmed it because I was like, okay, I have higher conviction elsewhere personally. I still like it though. I like it down here. This is probably an easy swing in my view for a good 20%, maybe even more, 25, 30% probably. Let's see what's the range on this guy. So from the current levels, 25% puts you up to 150. Yeah, I would say up to 150 would be my target on this guy too. So I think it's a good 25-cent play for AIRI. I like it. All right, let's see. I'm scrolling through. Appreciate it, Callum. Have worked a couple hours. See you again. Appreciate it. Thanks for the feedback. Let's see. Anything to say about silver ETF? Silver. So let's take a look at silver. SLV. This is interesting. We've been talking about silver. I think I've seen a lot of people talking about silver, and a lot of silver and gold took a pretty big hit towards the end of the week, which is interesting. I think this could be a shakeout move on these. So I think it's a possible. I mean, I would think it's a decent dip buy in my view for silver. I think it's going to see more than. I think it sees $30 on SLV before it sees 20, right? So we're sitting at 23. It's, I guess, somewhat of a 24 roughly. I mean, maybe it's a bold claim, but I think it sees 30 before it sees 20. And we haven't seen, I mean, look at where we are. We obviously made a big move and are kind of consolidating, putting in higher lows, but I think we see, yeah, that's my take. Let's see. CASI, FDA approval is coming up shortly. Let's see. Wow, this is a nice low bottomed out play. Let's pull this bad boy up. Yeah, we have some support down here towards this 135. Good support down here. We're at like 150, a kind of a whole level almost, right? 150. I kind of like that this play. Really oversold, right? Since, back in, the February, March period, it really took a hit. And it hasn't bounced much. I mean, it bounced from 135 up to 175. Okay, cool. But it hasn't had a big bounce. I don't know the much due diligence behind the play, but I think it could be setting up nice. All right, let's see. Let's see. Anything else? Hog news about bikes becoming electric. Oh, there we go. That's the thing. Everyone who thinks, some of these companies are on the way out, phasing out. Now, Harley Davidson electric bikes, I wouldn't be surprised. It makes sense, right? It would make a lot of sense for them to do that. Let's see. I mean, I can't really draw that line. It's not really a great line to put in, to be honest. Let's see. I mean, it's pulling back. It had it had a pretty nasty kind of sell-off Thursday, Friday, which a lot of stocks did have this kind of move. But it kind of filled this gap right here. Let's take a look. Roughly speaking, yeah, it kind of filled this gap a little bit. Some small gap we had right there, roughly. So I would like to see if this thing holds up around here. Harley Davidson, Hog, let's see if it holds up around this 43 area. If it does, it could be a good bounce zone after it was just up over 50, right? So this could be a good bounce zone for a play. Now, if it does dip below, I would think down towards $40, and then even this gap fill down here. So let's see, this gap fill potentially, which would be even down towards like 38, 37 would be a spot. So just watch. These are levels. If it falls in between, I would say you're kind of a no man's land under 43, roughly. But that's what I would, if it comes below there, maybe I would be waiting to see if it does sell off a little bit further down there. Look at the insider buying on Cassia. Let's take a look. I'll pull it up on, let me see. That might be one to add to my list as well. Okay, I can pull it up here. Let me pull it up here because it's good to see. I go to openinsider.com. You can look at FinViz too. CASI. We have COB CEO purchase. We have, oh wow, that's a pretty big purchase, right? $6.1 million was purchased, and that was back on the 26th of March, and that was at $2. CEO purchasing that much at that price sounds, like they're expecting a bigger move there, right? CFO purchasing 3,000 shares. I mean, 6,000 shares, nothing crazy. A CEO bought at $215, quite a bit. We have the CEO bought even at $190, a lot. $7.9 million. That's interesting to watch. I gotta add that to my list. That's an awesome idea. Maybe not for this week, but just for one. Even if it doesn't move this week, I just want to do some due diligence on it for sure, because I'll go back to Cassie. That is I mean, we don't have much more downside. I mean, you could go down more, right? But anything can happen. But relatively speaking, we have a lot of lows that we've dipped down to roughly in this range, and it's it's bounced in months and years past, right? So back in the early spring or late winter, I guess, right, of 2020, pandemic sell-off, right? We dipped down to the low ones. A couple months later, we're up here over 275. Dip back down here to 150. A couple months later, we're at 390. So there's a lot of range on this thing. I like that idea. So I'll be looking at this one for sure. I'll be looking into this guy this week for sure. And if I take a position, I will obviously let you guys know. So you will hear from me either if it's probably in Saturday's video if I'm in it. Obviously, I'll show you guys because I show you guys every single week what I am in. So that said, I will probably wrap things up right here. Check out yesterday's video if you have not seen that yet. If you are new, consider subscribing. But check out yesterday's video. What we do every single week, we go over the top stocks the stocks that I traded and also what I'm holding. So that's what we do. And I kind of recap day trading progress, how that's been, what I'm noticing in the markets, and then of course swings. Okay, scaling out of this stock, scaling into this stock, why I'm swinging this stock, stuff like that. If I take a new swing, we talk a little bit more about it. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff, a lot of stocks I still like, relatively speaking. So I actually have my buy in line for 150 on Cassie. Should get above 2, super easy. Yeah, I like that. This is a good play. That's definitely one that I will be adding to my list for sure. I like that CEO buy. I want to look a little bit deeper into them. I'll probably be looking into them tomorrow, if not later tonight, if I have a second. But I haven't. Honestly, I probably need to get some sleep because I haven't slept too much lately. So be ready to go tomorrow morning because here in Texas, I always watch pre-market, so I kind of have a bad habit of going to bed too late and then getting up at like 5 in the morning, which it's not that early really because some people get up at like 4 or 3, right? But 5 a.m. if you're going to bed towards midnight, you stack that up. That's not that much. Over time, it's like okay, that kind of sucks. So get your rest, be ready for the day. If you're going to hang out in pre-market before work, school, whatever, I highly would recommend it to accumulate those hours on the screen so you can start seeing how stuff moves if you want to be better. Even if you're not a day trader, it's really helpful just to see what's going on, what stocks are moving, why they're moving, looking into them, stuff like that. It's really helpful. Those hours, you can't replace that with studying and watching videos. Like that is the time, that's like your best bet. So I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. I will see you in the next video. Stay tuned for that. Good luck this week. Peace.